In this week's podcast, you'll learn 20 idioms related to chickens so that you can be king of the roost and the cock of the walk when it comes to speaking English. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, and if you are a new listener to the podcast, you're very, very welcome. And if you've come back to listen again, thank you for your company. My name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And with 50 years of teaching English between us, well, we're no spring chickens, but we are going to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Reza?
I'm fine. I'm clucking and raring to go.
You're clucking like a chicken.
Cluck, 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 cluck.
Pleased to hear it.
What about you? How are things?
Yeah, things are going well. I'm busy. I'm in the middle of another conversation course. It's going very, very well. Some of the students have come from previous courses, and we have some lovely new students. And speaking of the wonderful people in the conversation course, our first message today, the voice message, comes from a student in the conversation course, Montse, from Barcelona.
Hello, Craig. Hello, Reza. I wish you a very, very happy new year. It's been a long time that I'm listening to your podcast, and I had never dared to send an audio message, but now is a good time for new resolutions, so here I am. And it's precisely about new resolutions that I want to talk. Some time ago, I listened to a short talking about this matter. I liked it so much that I wrote down a note and I stuck it on my fridge door. Okay, here we go. Every resolution should be smart. I guess you and surely a lot of listeners know that smart, in that case, is not only a synonym of clever, but also an acronym that stands for 5 other words. S for specific, M for measurable, A for achievable, R for relevant, and T for timely. So let's have smart resolutions for 2023. And thank you for your lovely podcast.
Thank you for your message, Montse, and Happy New Year to you. And yes, it's the time of year when it's a good idea to set your goals, your resolutions, especially when we're speaking about English for this year, 2023. And as Montse said, it's a good idea to make your goals smart. For example, if you say, I want to improve my English this year, well, what does that mean? You can't measure that, can you? How much do you want to improve it? How are you going to improve it? You need to be very specific with your goals, as Montse said, and make sure you can measure them and attain them. Are they realistic? Are they achievable? And put a time. For example, I'm going to learn 4 new phrasal verbs every week and use them in emails and when I speak English. That's an example of something you can measure and something you can see the results of.
Yes, and as Craig said, also make it realistic. So 4 new phrasal verbs is realistic. You could do that, but don't try to set yourself 50 phrasal verbs in a week. That's not realistic. That, I think, is too hard. So don't push yourself too much because it could have the opposite effect. If it's not realistic, if you ask too much of yourself, you probably won't achieve it and you'll only feel worse. So it's got to be realistic, things that you can realistically achieve.
Yeah. I really liked one expression that Montse used in her message. I've never dared to send an audio message. That verb to dare to do something. So when you have 2 verbs together up, well, you have one verb after dare, make sure it's an infinitive. Dare to do something, which means to have the courage to do something. If you dare to do something, then you're going to have the courage to do it.
Yes, Montse, I was really impressed with your language and your pronunciation was very good as well.
We noticed, I think you said, I listened to a short talking. Better to use talk. So I listened to a short talk or a short presentation. And thanks again, Montse, for sending in your message. I hope you'll dare to send more in the future.
Now, if you want to get better at English, if you've set yourself SMART goals, as Montse suggests, then you have to go for it. Don't be a chicken. Now, what on earth do I mean by that, Craig? I'm not suggesting that we have any members of the avian, of the bird family who listen to our podcast. Well, you never know, they're welcome. But if I say to a person, don't be a chicken, go for it, what am I saying?
Well, if you call somebody a chicken, if you say you are a chicken, then you don't have the courage, you don't dare to do things. For example, I really wanted to do a bungee jump when I was in New Zealand years ago, but I didn't have the courage. I didn't dare to do it, so I can say I chickened out. So there we have a phrasal verb. To chicken out of something is to decide not to do something because you are frightened, because you don't have the courage. So in other words, you're a chicken.
And I'm not sure if Spanish speakers do this. Maybe you do, I can't remember. But in English, we actually accompany that expression often with the sound of a chicken. So imagine I was with Craig when he said, oh no, I'm not going to do the bungee jump, I'm too frightened. I might go, oh you chicken. And I would actually make the chicken sound as well.
I don't know why chickens are associated with not having courage and being frightened. Maybe because they run around quickly and you try to chase them or pick them up and they run away. But if you are a chicken, then you are afraid or frightened of doing something. You can also play chicken. If you play chicken, this is very common with children, younger kids, then you do a dangerous game. You play a dangerous game in order to discover who is the bravest in the group. For example, my friends and I, when I was younger, we used to ride our bicycles the wrong way down a one-way street. So the cars were coming towards us and we would be swerving and avoiding the cars to see who was the bravest on the bicycle and who was the worst, who chickened out and did not have the courage to do it. So if you play chicken, you're playing a dangerous game to see who the bravest person is.
And did you usually chicken out in the end, or did you win? Who was the best at it?
I used to do it, but I wasn't the bravest for sure. No, I did have some really wild, crazy friends when I was younger who would, take stupid risks and dangerous risks. So I was somewhere in the middle. So I wasn't a total chicken, but I wasn't the bravest, no.
Did anybody ever get hurt?
Not that I can remember. We used to fall off the bikes, but we didn't get killed or hit by a car. Yeah, we were lucky. Don't try this at home, children.
No. Now, a chick is a word I'm sure some of you have seen. It's a baby chicken, just like a pup or a puppy is a baby dog, or a kitten is a baby cat. A chick is a baby chicken. But Craig, there is another meaning of chick. What would you say about that word?
Yes, it's a colloquial expression and these days quite sexist, but it used to mean, and still means, a young woman, but it's not used as often because it's not very politically correct. So, for example, you might hear an older person say, when I was a young single man, I used to go to a bar where the hot chicks used to hang out and try to chat them up. So if you chat up someone or chat someone up, that means you start a conversation with the aim of beginning a romantic or sexual relationship with them. So to chat up a hot chick is to start a conversation with a really attractive female. So chick used to be used quite often to refer to a young woman.
It's curious, isn't it, that it happens to sound very similar to the Spanish word chicas. But chica is a fairly harmless word, usually in Spanish, I think. But chick, I wouldn't use it these days, although you might hear other people use it, or you might see it in older films. It was quite common. So you should understand it, but perhaps not use it.
Reza, where you work at your language school, now I know you have managers, you have people in charge, and then you have teachers, and the teachers are probably more or less on the same level. But is there a pecking order among the teachers, and what does pecking order mean?
Yes, I would say inevitably there's a pecking order in every workplace. I think it can't be avoided. Well, first we better find out what the word peck means. P-E-C-K. So peck is a verb, or it could be a noun as well. To peck is what chickens and other birds do with their beak. The beak, B-E-A-K, is like the nose of a chicken. So they don't really have noses, do they? But they have a hard thing stuck at the front of their face. Daffy Duck had a very big one. Remember Daffy Duck? He had a really big beak.
Daffy Duck, the cartoon character.
The cartoon character.
Yeah.
He was famous for his really big beak. So you use your beak, if you're a chicken, to peck. So it's a hard thing, and you use it to touch things, maybe to peck another bird that's annoying you. So when one bird wants to attack another, it uses its beak, this thing like a nose, and it uses it to softly touch the other bird.
And they also eat, the way they eat, where they quickly put their head on the ground to pick up really small pieces of grain or food. They're pecking on the ground, aren't they? They're pecking at their food. Actually, you could say that to a human. If somebody's not eating properly, you could say, don't peck at your food, eat it. Don't just quickly touch it, eat it properly. Don't peck at it.
So that's the word peck. So in the expression, the pecking order, perhaps, I imagine it's true, when there's a collection of birds together, the stronger, harder, bigger ones, they get to eat first, because if not, they will attack the weaker ones. So there's an order of who gets the best food first. So the pecking order in humans is like an informal social system describing the fact that not everybody is of equal importance. Whether it's official or not, there is some kind of system where the bigger, the stronger, the more favored ones, they get the choice of better opportunities. They're higher up in the pecking order.
And higher up in the pecking order in some companies often means the people who have been at the company the longest, or maybe the son or daughter or cousin of the boss or something like that, where they get this special rating or position in the staff.
Craig, can you think of any other expressions with the verb peck?
Yes, you can be henpecked. Now, a hen is a female chicken, a cock is a male chicken, a cockerel, or a rooster. We'll come to that later. But the hen is the female. So if a man is henpecked, or pecked by the hen, or by the female, that means he's intimidated and maybe a little bullied by his partner, by his wife or his girlfriend. You might hear the expression, a henpecked husband. So a husband who is told to do this and not do that, and take out the rubbish, and wipe your feet, and clean the shower, and pick up your clothes. Do I sound henpecked?
If you can imagine that the couple were birds, imagine that the female bird is using her beak, to peck, what we said earlier, to actually keep tapping, keep touching like the back of the neck of the male. Be really irritating. Hey, do this, do that. So that's where it comes from, the idea that the female, the hen, is pecking, touching away at the male, urging him, convincing him to do things, telling him off. Craig, I don't consider it sexist. Some people might take offense, but I don't think it's bad. But it is usually used in a joke way, isn't it? It's not a serious term.
Yeah, especially when men are together. Maybe you might go to the bar or the pub with a few guys, a few of your male friends, and you might say, look at him, he's henpecked. You might hear the expression to be under the thumb. We've had that expression before. If you're under the thumb, then you are subservient to your wife or your girlfriend. You do exactly what they say, and it's not a 50-50 equal relationship. But it's generally used as a joke to poke fun or make fun among men. It's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah. Although I have heard women say it. It's the sort of thing a woman would say about another woman who she finds irritating if she thinks the other woman is really horrible to her husband. So it's not a thing that's exclusively said by men. I have heard women say like, oh, Sarah's husband's so henpecked, poor guy, it'd be terrible to live with her. I've heard women use it as well.
Yeah. Now, if you are in a state of panic or confusion, you might be running around like a headless chicken. Now, if you cut the head off a chicken, I've never seen this, I've never done this, but I've heard that it continues to run for a few seconds before it realizes that it's dead and its heart stops beating. So imagine a person who is late for work and they can't find their car keys and they don't know where the wallet or their purse is, and they're running around like a headless chicken because they don't want to be later than they already are. So to run around in a panic, confused, you're running around like a headless chicken, a chicken without a head.
Now, a word which is very closely associated to chickens is eggs. So I've got an expression which, strictly speaking, doesn't have the word chicken, but it does have the word egg, where the chicken comes from, right?
Well, we have to decide that in a second because we're going to talk about what comes first, the chicken or the egg, but carry on.
Oh, right, okay. But for the minute, let's just deal with the egg. Yeah, that's the round thing where lots of animals are born, not humans, but birds, yes. We got an expression to have egg on your face. So imagine you're literally eating an egg and you're not paying attention and you get egg on your face. Doesn't look very good, does it? People will notice it. It doesn't look good. So used as an idiom metaphorically, if you have egg on your face idiomatically, it means that you look embarrassed because of something you did, or maybe something you should have done, but you didn't do. So we're not talking about the physical egg on your face here. I'll give an example. It's often used in politics. After categorically promising job creation, now that there's been a huge increase in unemployment, the Prime Minister has egg on his face. He looks really bad. He has egg on his face. He promised something, he's got the opposite, doesn't look good. He has egg on his face.
In the UK, we've had a few prime ministers recently who have finished their term in office with egg on their faces. Yeah. Now, teachers, as you know, or maybe you don't know, tend to earn quite a low salary. They don't get paid very well. You don't often find teachers driving around in a very expensive car and living in a huge house. So you could say that the money they earn is chicken feed, which is a small and not important amount of money. Here's an example. The concert tickets only cost me €25. That's chicken feed.
I've got another expression with the word egg, and it's a phrasal verb. Verb plus a preposition. To egg someone on. To egg on. That's to encourage someone to do something that is probably foolish. Here's an example. His drunk friends egged, so I'm using the past form there, E-G-G-E-D, egged. His drunk friends egged Peter on to pull down his own trousers and moon at passers-by. It seemed funny at the time, but not now.
What does to moon mean?
To moon is when you pull down your trousers and you show your bottom to people.
Your bum.
Your bum, your bottom. As you can imagine, if you point your bum, your bottom, towards someone's face, it kind of looks like the moon because it's a big, white, round thing in your line of vision.
Especially if it's an English bum, it probably is white, yeah.
I guess this was obviously invented by white people. I guess it's different for black people. The moon is not quite so bright. So a big white English bottom in your face is going to look like the moon. So to moon is pull down your trousers and show it to someone. So you wouldn't normally do that. But if you had drunk friends egging you on, saying, go on, do it. Yeah. You might be so foolish as to do it.
Now, we mentioned before a chicken and an egg. What came first? The typical conundrum of philosophy. What came first? Was the chicken the first thing on the earth, or was the egg from which the chicken came first on the earth? Now, this is a problem or a situation in which it is unclear which of the two things caused the other. So we can use that expression, a chicken and egg situation, when things are unclear. Can you think of an example, Reza?
Here's one from the business world. So it's often said in the business world that a company needs a strong customer base in order to be successful. But at the same time, a company needs to be successful in order to attract customers. So this is a chicken and egg situation because it's not clear which comes first. First, the strong customer base, or first, the success of the company. One thing kind of leads to the other. But which one was first, the chicken or the egg?
Good question. I was thinking the other day, I wonder what came first, colour TVs or TV series and films in colour to broadcast on the TVs? Because they must have changed at one point from black and white to colour when they were making content. So did they make the TVs first or make the films and the TV shows? Chicken and egg. What do you think?
As far as I know, I think they actually made the films first.
Because you could see them in black and white even though it was in colour. That's
Exactly.
true.
Yeah, they made the films first, while they then looked for a way of being able to show up the colour, which they eventually did. Yeah. So is the film the chicken or the egg? I don't know which one to call it, though.
That's why it's a conundrum. Another example, a person's personality. Can we say that a person's personality is formed or shaped by their experiences and their environment and their family? Or does their personality, their genes, shape their experiences? For example, people who are using very dangerous drugs in the US and they're addicted to drugs, do they take drugs because it's around them in their environment, or just because it's in their genes to want to experiment and in their genes to then become addicted? It's another chicken and egg question.
It's funny you should mention that because there have been some research projects which have concluded, but not all of them, that Celtic people, in other words, the Irish, the Scottish, and the English and Welsh to a certain extent as well, have a predisposition to becoming alcoholics. They reckon it might be genetic. There's something about the genes of British and Irish people and a few other Celtic areas where they just like drinking. It suits their genes. It seems to be.
It could be, but to some degree, it must be also connected to the environment and the social fabric and the traditions and the culture. The drinking culture. There must be something there that influences them to drink as well as possibly have it in their blood.
It's the chicken and the egg again, isn't it? Who knows?
Our next expression with chickens is don't count your chickens before they hatch. Now, speaking of eggs and chickens, when the chicken or chick comes out of the egg, we can say that the chick has hatched. H-A-T-C-H is a regular verb. So the chicken hatched from the egg. What does that expression mean, Reza? Don't count your chickens before they hatch.
So anybody who's ever witnessed a large number of eggs which are about to hatch, you'll know that they don't all hatch. It's very unusual for them all to hatch if there's a big number, because there'll be some which either don't have a chick inside, or the chick sadly has already died before it hatches. That's very common. In other words, 20 eggs doesn't mean 20 chicks. 20 eggs could be 17 chicks. You don't know. You don't know. In other words, you can't come to a conclusion until you have the evidence there in front of you. Don't be too soon in coming to a conclusion. Wait until you can do it. Wait till the evidence is there before you.
There's a similar expression in Spanish. I can translate it into English, and Spanish speakers will know what I'm speaking about here. Don't sell the milk before you buy the cow. Very similar.
Yeah.
Very similar meaning. So an example for you. Why did you buy a new car, Reza? You only started your business last year. You shouldn't count your chickens before they hatch. And I suppose credit cards are like that, aren't they? Because with a credit card, you're buying on credit and you're paying later. So you're counting your chickens before they hatch. You're counting your money or spending your money before you actually receive it.
Still on the topic of eggs, there's another very common expression, which is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Why not? Well, it's common sense. Imagine you drop the basket. Well, you've probably broken now all or most of your eggs. If you had 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever number of baskets, and you dropped one, the rest will be okay. In other words, it's a metaphorical, idiomatical expression for saying, don't rely on just one course of action. Have a plan B, a plan C or D, or divide things up so you don't lose everything at the same time. For example, if you were a business person, don't invest all your money in one brand new company. Could make a lot of money, or you could lose it all.
Yeah.
If you only invest 50% of your money there, you'll still make a lot, not as much as 100% if it's successful. But if it goes under, you won't lose all your money. So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
That's very good advice. Diversify. Diversify your investments. Now, we mentioned earlier that the female of a chicken is a hen and the male is a rooster or a cock. So if you're cocky, the adjective, C-O-C-K-Y, if you're cocky, just imagine a male chicken walking around the farmyard. They know they're the biggest. They know they're the top of the pecking order. They know they get to eat the food first. So they're very cocky, which means they are very, very confident and arrogant, maybe too confident. So this expression, cocky, the adjective, is used to describe people who are full of themselves, very confident, and they think they are better than others. Do you have any cocky students?
I do. A few young learners, kids who are a bit cocky, but hopefully they'll grow out of it. And not surprisingly, all of them in this case are male. It's a word which tends to be associated more, though not exclusively, but more with men.
And I was talking last week on the podcast with Ben, who came on as a guest to talk about exams, Cambridge exams, and he was talking about cocky students who have a high level of English, so they think they don't need to learn the strategy and techniques of the exam, and they don't pass because they haven't learned about timing and different strategies for the different parts. So they're just too cocky. Their English is really, really good, and they don't think they need to study. There's another expression with cock, and that's cock of the walk, W-A-L-K, cock of the walk. What does that mean, Reza?
Cock of the walk is an arrogant person. Here's an example. Ever since he got that new promotion, he has been cock of the walk, ordering people around. So can you imagine a cock, a cockerel, a rooster, walking around, the one in charge, it's got all the hens there, he thinks he's the boss. So cock of the walk, walking about in a really proud or really bossy way.
An inflated ego, maybe. Somebody has a very large ego. In fact, it reminds me of cocky. It's a very similar thing, isn't it? If you're cocky, then you're arrogant. If you're cock of the walk, it's a similar thing. And maybe it comes from that Chinese proverb that says, man with hand in pocket feels cocky all day. And a similar expression that is really quite similar to being an arrogant person or somebody who is in a position of power or a position of dominance, perhaps, is to be king of the roost. King of the roost. And the roost is where chickens or birds come back to feed their young, and that's where their nest is. So if you're king of the roost, you're king of your environment and you're dominating the world around you. Next, we go to another expression with cock, a cock and bull story. So we already said that cock is a chicken, a male chicken, and a bull is a very large male cow. Obviously two very different animals, aren't they, in size and in mannerisms and the way they are, a cock and a bull. So a cock and bull story is a ridiculous story that is not thought to be true. Can you think of an example?
What about this? She told me that she was on vacation, but now she tells me that she was sick. I didn't believe her cock and bull story for 1 second. Yeah, so I'm her boss. And I wanted to know why she wasn't at work. First she said it was a holiday. Then she said, oh, no, I was sick. Yeah, I just remembered. Come on, cock and bull story. make up your mind. It's not convincing anybody.
What a load of rubbish. Cock and bull story. Reza, have you ever been on a hen night?
I haven't, which probably doesn't surprise you because generally speaking, a hen night is only for women. Although I have seen exceptions these days in modern times. Sometimes they do invite a few token males.
As strippers?
As strippers, perhaps. Some of them are friends who get to keep their clothes on. But generally speaking, a hen night is what it says. It's for the hens. So the hens, as Craig said earlier, they're the female birds. So it's a celebration held for a woman who's going to get married, the woman who is going to be the bride. And so it's usually only attended by women and, as Craig said, sometimes male strippers.
And the equivalent for men before they get married, when the guys go out together, that's a stag night, S-T-A-G. So a male deer is called a stag. And they go on a stag night in the UK and a bachelor party in the US. But I don't know in the US if they use a hen night as the name for the party before the wedding.
I don't know if they do, but I know these days they do have another term, which is it not bachelorette party? Is that
Maybe, yeah. Bachelorette party, yeah, could be.
So if you hear someone say, my fiance is going out on her hen night, the night before the wedding, she's not going to play around with birds. The fiance, who is the person that you've promised to get married to, the one you are engaged to, is going to be with a load of female friends.
And we hope that neither the bride or the groom chickens out of the wedding and has cold feet. Now, if you want to do something quite difficult, sometimes you have to sacrifice in order to get it. For example, if you want to learn English and improve your English, well, I'm really sorry, but you're going to need to have to study a bit of grammar. You're going to need to learn some new words and expressions and idioms to expand your vocabulary. You need to make an effort. You can't make an omelette if you don't break a few eggs. So what does that mean, Reza? You can't make an omelette if you don't break a few eggs.
So an omelette doesn't make itself, does it? Everybody knows that an omelette's made out of eggs, but the egg's in a shell. The hard exterior of the egg is the shell. Well, you have to break the shell. And quite often, if you're like me, when you break an egg, you muck things up. To muck up, M-U-C-K, up, means to do something so that everything doesn't quite go to plan. When I break the eggs, quite often some of the egg shell goes into the egg. But it's a risk you got to take. Sometimes it happens. You break the egg, you don't want the shell, but a little fragment breaks off and it goes into the egg. Well, bad luck, then you've got to get it out. But you know what? You can't make that omelette if you don't break the eggs. You've got to do it.
Exactly. And we said at the beginning of the podcast that we are no spring chickens. We are not young guys. Someone who is no longer young, someone who is advancing in years, you can say, well, he or she is no spring chicken. A spring chicken is a young chicken. Reza looks really good for his age, but he's no spring chicken. And neither am I.
Well, I don't know if I look good for my age, but I accept Craig's compliment. Thank you very much. But I feel good. That's the most important thing.
It is.
I feel good for my age. And let me tell you, and I think I speak for Craig as well, I still enjoy every second of podcasting as much as the very first day I ever did it. That I can tell you for sure.
I'm pleased to hear it, and I feel exactly the same way. But now it's your turn to practice your English. If you want to improve your speaking, you're going to have to speak, because you can't make an omelette if you don't break a few eggs. So why not send us a voice message and practice a few times before you send it to improve your fluency? How can people do that, Reza?
Well, the best way is to send the voice message to SpeakPipe. You'll see a link in the show notes at speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. But there is a time limit, bear that in mind, of 90 seconds. But Craig, what if they chicken out at the last minute and they think, oh, I'm going to write, I'm not going to record my voice? What can they do?
You can reach us by email. You can send a comment or question to me, Craig, Craig, at inglespodcast.com. Or Reza, you can reach him at Belfast, Reza, Reza, at gmail.com. And before we say goodbye this week, we'll just remind you that this podcast is sponsored in part by mansioningles.com. And if you're interested in some paid courses to help you with your English, go and visit the online store. The online store is at store.mansioningles.net.
As always, we'd like to thank all of those people who help us by supporting the podcast through the Patreon scheme. Patreon, that's Patreon. If you're interested in joining the Patreon program and donating some money, it can be as little as $1.50 per month. The 50 cents is to cover the VAT tax. As a thank you for people who donate that money, we will give you instant access to recent audio transcriptions. If you think you might give it a go, have a look at the link in the show notes to patreon.com/inglespodcast.
We don't have time, unfortunately, to thank all of you who are supporting us, but we will say thank you and hello to our most recent supporters on Patreon. They are José Francisco Prieto López, Concha de la Calle, Montse Carrasel Simón, César Morales, Rosa Campos, Carlos Enrique, and Benjamin Segura, who is sponsoring us for more than the minimum of $1.50. Thank you to you and to all of our wonderful Patreon supporters. What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we've got Ancient Civilizations.
Until then, thank you for listening this week. Have a wonderful week. And until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.